Reporting and supporting what matters, this is City Examiner Weekly.
Ansonia, Derby, East Lyme, and Stamford are among the towns whose late audits have gotten them in trouble with the state and their own taxpayers. Now it's Hamden's turn. The town's mayor appeared this week before the Municipal Finance Advisory Commission. The commission had little to say after Mayor Adam Sendroff made his 15-minute presentation. I'm Nick Sambides, and I'll have that story.
In Stamford and in towns across Connecticut, elected officials say they've had enough with personal attacks. But what can or should they do to limit the public's right to comment and criticize at public meetings? It's a clash between First Amendment rights and local government. I'm Eric Obernauer with the story.
Lion dances, red envelopes, firecrackers, and smiling fortune gods. The Lunar New Year is marking the year of the horse. I'm reporter Amy Wu reporting on celebrations for the roughly 200,000 East Asian residents living here in Connecticut.
And I'm your host, Brian Scott Smith, and along with our reporters, I'm joined by Greg Stroud, Editor-in-Chief. Welcome to you all. Now, it seems our right to free speech is under attack more and more, despite the protection of the First Amendment. But it's not just happening at the national level, it's happening closer to home here in Connecticut and at municipal public hearings. Our reporter, Eric Obernauer, joins us remotely now with the details. Eric.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you referenced the national level because in Stamford, there's a move to try to restrict what officials call personal attacks at public meetings. Of course, the devil is always in the details, what defines a personal attack. And somebody had a really interesting observation saying, you know, if I came to a public meeting and said, you know, Trump is whatever you want to, impeding our freedoms or whatever, probably the all-Democrat committee would all agree, but that would actually be not allowed if you want to take it to its logical conclusion under their proposal to restrict personal attacks. And therein lies the problem. And what defines a personal attack? Is mere criticism a personal attack? I mean, certainly profanity, just calling somebody outright names that are not appropriate for a public setting. I mean, certainly those pass muster. But when you get beyond that, it becomes harder to define.
Amy, you had a question.
I mean, that's really interesting, Eric. I'm wondering if there's anything that's kind of sparked this, the limitations of the public talking at meetings, especially since we're in the middle of budget season and Board of Ed budgets as well.
Well, I mean, again, I can refer back to Stamford, where first there was a proposal at the start of this year to limit people to speaking no more than 3 times at public meetings, which really was ridiculous and just it didn't get traction, I think, for all the obvious reasons. But, to your point, Amy, I mean, how do you even restrict how often people can speak? I mean, sometimes topics come up at a meeting that weren't expected. Something appears in a budget or a budget changes or something is added that wasn't expected. So this is the problem. Once you try to get into the granular level details, rather, of what speech we're going to regulate, how we're going to regulate it, it really, you end up getting into these disputes, if you will, or gray areas that become impossible to define.
And Nick's got a question.
Yeah, when I started as a reporter, we had the people we called, rather unkindly, the gadflies. They were the ones who would go to the mic and give you a stream of consciousness until they got gavelled down. Is that something that happens a lot in Stamford meetings? And how much of this do you see as being directed at substance or at just bad personal habits?
It's probably, it's probably a little of both. I can talk about, which is something I'm working on as we speak still, the Stamford Zoning Board, where there is a member of the public and who also comes to Board of Education meetings, other meetings, but she is, for lack of a better way of putting it, she is a provocateur. I guess you could call something of a provocateur. There was a few hearings recently on a proposal to build a mosque, and she said at a public meeting that she objected to the fact that the name was going to be in Arabic. And the zoning board chairman gavelled her down and said that that's disrespectful, and he stopped her midstream. And then again, very recently, she began her comment by saying, "Good evening, brothers and sisters in Christ." And again, the zoning board chairman immediately cut her off. And okay, so were her comments maybe provocative, even rude, maybe, perhaps, but Yeah, that again comes back to the whole point of the First Amendment. It's meant to protect speech that's uncomfortable. That's really the point. It's not just speech that we approve of.
Greg.
I think probably in the last 6 years since we started CT Examiner, I've attended or watched, I don't know, maybe 400 meetings. I can't actually recall more than one, maybe two, that I thought truly got out of hand or where the personal attacks were so much. And so I sort of wonder whether what we're seeing here is just, it's almost right to say something's in the water. We're seeing the conversation on the federal level, on the local level, and people are just tired. They're tired of the politics. They're tired of social media. And a lot of these people are, frankly, they're volunteers. They might be elected officials, but they're not making money. And so they just don't want to hear it anymore. And that's an uncomfortable fit, I think, with democracy.
It is, Greg. But, again, I'll go back to Harry, her friend Harry Truman said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And look, one of the great things about living in a democracy is anyone can express an opinion, can run for office. But when you step up and serve in public office and inevitably have to take positions on controversial issues, it goes with the territory. Not everybody is going to be happy, and some of them are going to criticize you. Some of them are going to do so in ways that are not necessarily, what we would call polite. But again, look at, I think, Greg, you had referenced, just look at, anyone who's ever watched a session of Prime Minister's questions in Parliament in the UK, which our friend Brian can relate to. Attacking the Prime Minister is practically a sport there, or making fun of the Prime Minister. But I'll go back to Winston Churchill, who said, telling someone to, how did he put it? He said, diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip.
Amy's got a quick point, and then Greg, and then we're going to have to move on.
What I have seen recently in the town of Groton, some of the meetings, where there have been limitations, is folks actually bringing in also signs written on large pieces of cardboard as well, communicating their thoughts and their perspective when those have been limited. There's not much they can do about it.
And Greg?
One thing I know from reporting and meeting with public officials is they read their press. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's the governor. It doesn't matter if it's a senator. They're very aware of what's being said about them. There's something about running for public office where you're also looking at, so how am I doing? What's the public saying? And it's remarkable. Even the smallest newspapers, the clippings will end up there at a federal office in Washington, D.C., talking about the train, talking about the sewers, talking about whatever. So the fact that people have thin skins shouldn't be a surprise.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I also think it brings up the point of perhaps these people need some either public speaking training or some media training, and understand, that when you become a public figure, that's what's going to happen. Eric, thanks ever so much for that. We're moving on now to our reporter, Nick Sambides, who reports regularly, certainly on Hampden. And Ansonia, Derby, East Lyme and Stamford are among the towns whose late audits have gotten them in trouble with the state and the taxpayers. Now it's Hampden's turn. They have a $38 million financial crisis, and have recently appointed an economic development czar. Nick is with us in the studios. Tell us more, Nick.
Mayor Adam Sendroff made his first appearance before the Municipal Accountability Review Board on Wednesday, and it was very brief. It was 15 minutes, but he got some pretty strong signals that the town needs to finish its 2024 audit. Audits are so critical to the town, any town's finances, and Hampden's has been lapsed for hasn't finished one in about 2 years. It's a really difficult position for him to be in because essentially the money's already spent. That audit is expected to tell him that he has a $46 million surplus that is going to be winnowed down to about $38 million by the end of the 2027 fiscal year. It was his first attempt at or first appearance there. So I really felt for the man because he made a lot of progress, but they still nobody's been able to say yet exactly when that 2024 audit will be finished.
Greg.
How many? So we have town after town in Connecticut that's coming away with a late budget or a late audit, excuse me. And we see this in Stamford, we see this in Hamden. So what does it matter? What does an audit tell us? I thought my understanding was that Hamden was facing a $38 million deficit, or $38 million less than they thought they had. And is that correct?
It is correct, but that's upcoming. And if they continue to spend money the way the previous mayor, Lauren Garrett, spent it, and that's a very difficult problem, because she compiled all this money that is savings, and because of a lack of audit, neither she nor the legislative council really had an idea of what they were spending as they were putting out two municipal budgets.
So, Eric, you've been dealing with these audits in Stamford. So what are you hearing down in Stamford? Have they resolved them, or what's been taking so long?
Well, I was told when I last spoke with the mayor a couple of months ago, I guess, that everything was resolved. Essentially, everything was resolved and on track now. The reasons given, which again predates my time here in Connecticut a little bit, but the reasons given, as I understand previously, was they were updating their software or their computer systems, and that this caused a backlog in the audits. I mean, it doesn't quite make sense to me, because, I mean, okay, if you're updating your computer systems, why not keep doing the audits however you were doing them with the old software, paper and pencil, if that. So I don't. So that's as best as I understand it, Greg.
Nick,
I share your confusion. Let me tell you, Eric, because it is something that is very difficult to explain. But I think at the heart of all of these audit problems, or the state problems, is you have a lack of capable finance directors. A lot of people leave their jobs, and they aren't very easy to replace. Mayor Adam Sendroth has made replacing the town's finance department director, who left a year and a half ago, a big priority, and he's got nowhere on it because they can't find somebody qualified to hire. He's gone so far as looking at retired finance directors, and they've all said, no, we're going to stay retired. It's a very, very difficult job to fill under the best of circumstances, and there's likely a shortage of qualified people nationwide.
Amy.
Piggybacking off of that, I was going to say absolutely. I mean, in Groton, for example, they've gone through a merry-go-round of finance directors, in this case for the school district. Recent, like in July, hired the latest one that seems to be working out for everybody, but also on the lines of software, that seems to be a big common thread, that the systems are still being done paper, pencil, and here we are, they're in July going to roll out a new software system.
So, I mean, some of it, what we're seeing then is we're seeing just the limits on just sort of sometimes amateur government, sometimes hiring professionals, the ability to hire professionals. We maybe a transparency issue. Everyone says that it's all resolved. Don't worry about it. But I think so far Hamden might be the implications there are pretty dire. I mean, they're talking right now the way to solve their budget issue is by across the board cuts, I think, of 5%, I think is what we were hearing last. And that might sound like a small number, but when you're talking about inflation and rising costs, 5% is a lot.
And Hamden's mill rate is already at 51. So it's very high. And it's a very difficult, I mean, really having the state come in and bail them out might be their best option. I've raised it several times in past articles, because that comes with a lot of bailout money to schools and everything else. The municipalities are trapped by the fact that budgets really cannot be cut by schools.
One thing that also that I think that you referenced, Nick, which I do seem to recall being given as a reason in Stamford as well, was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they might have gone through more than one finance director. I find it stunning that when you have the equivalent of a multi-million-dollar corporation in a municipality, that the audit is just in the hands of essentially one person, and all the muscle memory that entails. And I'll just refer back to I remember some years ago in New Jersey, in my former stomping grounds, there was a school board that replaced their finance director after about 10 years. And it turned out they'd been running deficits all that time that they never knew about. And the books were a mess. There were a lot of issues. And so that's just another interesting aspect to me.
Nick, just respond to that, and then Greg's got a final
Absolutely
comment.
right. I mean, we're in an age, people are enormously frustrated by this because the technology should make this easier than ever. And it doesn't, because the technologies they're using, they're not really standardized. Everybody's got something different. And they don't, all these municipalities that have problems have a common issue with, they don't cope well with changing personnel.
Greg, final comment on this.
Well, I just think it's one thing that all the listeners that we have out there should be thinking about is your audit. It's sort of like basically, has your town completed its audit? And you should be asking your board of selectmen, you should be asking your mayor, you should be asking your board of finance that. And if not, and they say, no, but it's not a problem, take a look at Hamden, and that's certainly what you don't want to be happening in your town.
Yeah, alarm bells should be ringing if you hear that. Nick, ever so many thanks. Great story there, as usual. And our final story today is about the new Lunar Year, a major celebration in the Asian calendar and for Connecticut's Asian communities. This year is the Year of the Horse, and our reporter Amy Wu is here in the studio with us to explain more. Amy.
So it's exciting. The Lunar New Year is the largest holiday for the Chinese and for a lot of the East Asian cultures. It's the equivalent of like Thanksgiving. It started, the actual New Year was on February 17th, and it runs for 16 days. Actually, it ends on March 4th with the Lantern Festival. So it was really fun and exciting to be able to see how it's celebrated here throughout Connecticut. Example is spent a whole day with the young people and children and youth at the Southern Connecticut Chinese School. They had a big celebration where all the children aged, 2 years old to, I think in their mid-20s were performing to celebrate. So they had the one highlight was the Wushu Academy. Wasn't sure quite what to expect, but this is top notch. It's like Michelle Yeoh performing.
Wow.
I think something about this is that we realize, we don't speak that much in the press about this huge, frankly, East Asian community or East Asian population that has come to Connecticut. We're, a huge presence in the casino business, which is really a motor for Southeastern Connecticut, but also professionals, small business owners, and you're seeing, I think the meeting was it in Groton or in Guilford? Did you go to a celebration in Guilford for this? And so people coming from all over to celebrate this, the Year of the Horse.
Yes, people coming from all over, and also mentioning the casino's Mohegan Sun. They actually have an Asian communications team of 25 people. Covers everybody from Vietnamese to Korean, and Lunar New Year is their biggest celebration. Actually, it's February 22nd. They're going to have a full day along with firecrackers as well. And I think roughly about 20 to 25% of their business is coming from East Asians. That's including definitely the casino and overnight stays as well. So it's big business.
Absolutely.
Along with celebrating.
Absolutely. Yeah. Eric's got a question.
Amy, I'm very curious. The Chinese New Year and how it's celebrated here in America, is it different at all, or is it a bigger deal than one might find in East Asia or China itself? I ask that because I've often heard that St. Patrick's Day, it's big, huge holiday in the States. They even have a St. Patrick's Day parade in places like Japan, and yet, from what I understand, it's really not that big a holiday in Ireland. I'm not Irish. I could be wrong about that, but I'm wondering if you have any insight.
It's funny. It's huge in East Asia. I can speak for definitely Hong Kong and China. This is a 7-day holiday for ordinary people. It is a 14-day holiday if you are fortunate enough to work at a company that gives you the 14 days. People are traveling, throughout all different provinces and getting on the train. So it is big. And over here in the U.S., it's a huge celebration at major cities, medium-sized cities, even like Guilford. There was 500 people attending this event. So the lion dance, the red envelopes filled with lucky money, the fortune gods that are handing out the lucky money, the firecrackers, the fresh flowers, and going from home to eat with friends and family are the traditions that continue everywhere.
Nick, then Greg.
Yeah. Do you have any particular town or favorite? I know you're new to Connecticut, or What are there festivals you'd pick out for a relative newcomer to these things like me?
Well, I would pick out the Chinese school, actually, because they have authentic performances, from within the Chinese community. The culture and the language is very much ingrained in the community. And sometimes I think that they should do a little bit more publicity, perhaps. It's a community where language, especially, and culture can sometimes be arguably a division, but also a bridge, I think. Yeah.
Greg?
I know that Connecticut certainly outpunches its weight for restaurants and Chinese restaurants in particular. And this is a time where you see these menus that are these great sort of banquet menus to celebrate the holiday. A lot of the restaurants have them. It's something that I'd certainly encourage listeners to participate in, and you'll get great food that you might not get any other time of the year.
Amy, I've got a quick question. A clarification question. Is Lunar New Year the same as Chinese New Year? Is it just a more inclusive sort of like piece of language? Can you just explain it? Because I've always heard, before I came to the US, in the UK, it was always Chinese New Year. So can you just explain if there's any differences?
Lunar New Year is definitely all-encompassing and is the term, because the Vietnamese and Korean and there are other Asian cultures that do celebrate the New Year at the same time. But the Chinese New Year in particular, with the traditions, like I mentioned, like the red envelopes, the lion dances, other East Asian cultures have adopted that as well. So it's the rituals of celebration that often make people go, oh, it's Chinese New Year's, because the Chinese really know how to throw a big party.
They certainly
during
do.
This time.
They certainly do. And of course, as this is being celebrated as well, it's also Ramadan and Lent. It's all come together. So lots of celebrations for lots of communities. Amy, thanks ever so much for that. We're going to take a quick look at some events that are happening in and around the state. And Robin isn't here, but I'm going to stick with her foodie, because she likes to pick up on foodie stories. And there's a culinary trip through Bordeaux with the Wise Old Dog and Greg will correct me here, is it Le Maizet in West Hartford?
Le Maizet, I believe.
Maizet.
But Wise Old Dog, this is one of the state's great wine stops. It's a community hub in the state for thinking about tasting wine. If they're sponsoring an event, I'll guarantee you that event is going to be a good one.
So what's interesting about this is you have to obviously book. It's about $68 per person, very limited seating, and they have a member of staff there, Florine Gasbon, a French native from Lille, and she's going to talk through this evening in Bordeaux. So you're going to taste all of these wonderful foods, and you can also then go on a tour with Gasbon later in the year. It's a maximum of 12 people, so a very intimate 8-day tour. All of the details are on the website there. But looking at the menu, and I know, Greg, that you are a bit of a bon vivant, oysters and caviar, duck confit salad, and grilled ribeye mushroom and or bordelaise sauce. How's that grab you?
Well, this was the restaurant where we had our holiday party. So
good restaurant.
Lamazette. So everyone gathered around. It's a convivial place. It's not uptight. It's a casual place where friends and family can come and hang out after work or on a weekend. So I'd recommend it highly.
And Amy, you're a foodie as well. What does that grab you at all? French food or French influenced food?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they had the best ice cream that I've ever had in my entire life.
Well, there you go.
Excellent stuff. Now, another one, which is actually in New York State, is the James Beard Foundation Taste America. That's February 24th. That'll set you back $150. And it's a national tasting event with chefs, and it's being held at Market 57, which is a new dining destination on the Hudson River on 11th Avenue in Manhattan. And basically, you can get to go around, taste all this food from these amazing chefs. And one of the reasons I mention it, of course, is the James Beard. We have a James Beard Award winner, of course, here in southeastern Connecticut, David Standridge of the Ship's Rights Daughter. But also this year, we've got, I believe, about 6 semi-finalists in the James Beard for various things as well.
Connecticut restaurants have been one of the great stories in the Northeast for the last 5 years. I think they were getting a lot of publicity, and I'm not sure they lived up to it 5 years ago, but they do now. And, we sat down with a few of these chefs last week, and frankly, the food was on point. And we have people up for national level awards, and you can try their food. If you can't get a reservation in Connecticut, well, you can head to New York in this event, and there'll be a lot of other people appearing as well.
Now we're looking at a lecture series called Coastal Perspectives, opening the black box of container shipping, technology, environment, and society of global sea trade. That's UConn, Avery Point Auditorium on February 24th. And it delves behind the story behind modern shipping containers and, in recent years, the supply chain crisis during the COVID-19 global pandemic. Fascinating conversation there with maritime scholar Dr. Liang Wu from Cornell University. He will open the black box of container shipping to look into its systemic workings in the post-war globalization era. Greg,
I think that's a conversation for this region in southeastern Connecticut. What are we going to do with State Pier? And for a while, Bridgeport, they were the hub for where everyone got their bananas. It's a very specific trade. And I had that conversation with state officials about 5 years ago where they're saying, what are we going to do with this pier? And they thought wind energy. And maybe that won't be it. Maybe it'll be something else. Maybe it'll be, who knows, cars. And so this conversation, I think, is a great opportunity to rethink what's happening here in southeastern Connecticut and Connecticut in general.
Nick.
It's hard to overstate how badly the international shipping community was devastated by coronavirus. I helped cover it when I was working a couple of years ago at a place that covers international seafood markets, and the chaos wrought by this. I mean, you had ships stacking up for weeks at a time at ports. And a lot of the time they simply didn't have enough Connex containers in order to handle all the shipping that was coming in because they were stuck on boats. I don't know that the industry's ever going to fully recover from that, or if it has yet.
I'm not sure it's even recovering or it's rethinking, a giant rethinking of what trade is. And we're seeing that with tariffs. We're seeing that with the idea of building things at home. But really just a big rethink in where Connecticut fits in. We're not the most trade intensive of states, but certainly it's important, and we'll see.
And the final one we've got here is the Flowered Press Workshop with Marguerite Alper at Carriage Barn Arts Centre in New Canaan. That's February 26th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It'll cost you $195 to $205. And you get to discover the art of pressing flowers, which I thought was interesting because, I had no idea there is actually an art form to it. And she will take you through, how to transform them into beautiful one-of-a-kind works of art. And this very intimate workshop, which is limited to 15 participants. In the first hour, she'll show you and demonstrate how to use a wooden flower press and explore the various methods for pressing flowers. Then you get to do it, and you can take it home and obviously have some beautiful piece of art that you've created yourself.
As anyone that loves books, loves used books. I mean, one of the great things about used books or opening up old books is finding a flower. You find a lucky clover, you find a note. And this art form, which dates back, certainly it was very popular in the Victorian era, it's just nice to see it passed on and continued and maybe, glorified as more of an artwork in itself.
Absolutely. Well, those are our events for this week. That's the end of this edition. My thanks to Greg, Amy, Nick, and Eric, as always. Don't forget to check out the digital pages of ctexaminer.com for the stories you've just heard and many more, and our events calendar, of course, for all the local happenings. And while you're there, why not subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on all the week's news? It's just $20 for the entire year. This is CT Examiner Weekly, reporting and supporting what matters. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thanks for listening.